Hey, happy Friday, creative bosses. Is this working? Let's see. Yes, we're working. Awesome. I keep having problems with the Facebook Live. So happy Friday, creative bosses and my business besties. I'm so happy to have you here. So today what I wanted to talk about was what trapeze class taught me about business and life. And I know that sounds like a little bit of a strange title, but about a week ago, I took a trapeze class. It's actually a gift from my boyfriend, and I signed up thinking it was going to be something fun and exciting, something new to do. And what I didn't expect to have happen from the class was to glean a whole bunch of really great just insights and life lessons about taking the leap and how to face the fear and just those jumps and risks we take in our business and our life. And so many things were firing off in my brain during this class. 7 that I pinpointed that I want to jam on today. I left you kind of a cheat sheet here, so if any of these resonate with you, which ones you throw the number down below. So the first lesson that let me pull it up so that I'm on the same page with you guys, or on the same numbers. So the first thing that jumped out with me in this class, and the first, I guess, lesson we can call it, was that cognitively understanding something is different than experience. And gosh, this one I think is just such a great one for all of us who are running our own businesses or having our own creative endeavors for us to remember. So when I signed up for the class, what they had us do is we got there and they ran through what we were going to do up in the air one time. And then they had us do it once on the mat. And then we were off to get up in line and to do our first jump. Now, if you'd left it up to me, I would have liked to have spent 3 hours learning about the history of trapeze, the proper technique, the proper form. I could have spent the whole day just on the mat, cognitively learning about how to do trapeze. And what I realized when I was up there, quite terrified, is that these instructors were really onto something, because what they realized is that there's something very different about understanding something in our minds versus taking action and practicing and putting something into action. And I probably learned more on that first jump than I could have in countless number of hours on the mat practicing in my mind. And I think the really big takeaway I got from that was that, who of us haven't taken the umpteenth webinar or filled out so many worksheets or taken so many courses, or think that maybe if we take one more class in our specialty, that will make us ready, or that will make us better at what we do, or that will give us more knowledge. And while I think the basis for anything we do does start with learning, and yes, learning is important, I'm not knocking learning, and it does start with that understanding piece, we can learn so much more by taking one of those courses or one of those webinars, one of those action steps, and putting them into practice than we could from listening to 100 webinars or 100 classes. And I think this goes for all of the areas of our business. We can learn so much more by that jump we take, by taking that leap and by putting something into practice and from that practical experience than we can about just thinking about it or understanding the concept of something. Real quick, I'll just say with me as a coach, I think there's so much more I learned practicing by actually having a business and by actually working with people than I ever could from a course on how to coach someone or how to run a business. So that was one of the really big lessons from trapeze class that jumped out at me. So the next one was take action before you're ready. Oh, I think we hear about this one a lot, but this one really jumped out to me here because, like I said, we had those 2 practices on the ground, those 2 walkthroughs, and then it was up to the air we went. And I had to tell you, I was so not ready to even climb that ladder after those 2 run-throughs. And if you had left it up to me, again, I would have just stayed on the ground and just practice. And I think the lesson there is that we rarely feel ready for the leaps life or business presents us. Most of the things we want in life that are worth wanting, most of the things we're excited about, because so often that fear we feel is really excitement that we are we'll call it diagnosing, but that we're misaligning our feelings towards. So often we don't feel ready. And the thing is, our feelings lie to us all the time. I'm going to talk about fear in the next bullet point, but fear is something we're all wired to have. That is the way our brain has evolved and wired to be to protect us. So this is something we all have, and that doesn't mean that what we feel is real. So often our feelings lie to us and we think they are the truth, but they aren't. And if I had listened to that feeling, I would have never jumped. And the truth was, I didn't feel ready, but I was more than ready. And I ended up doing better than I thought I could have. And I had so much fun. So if I'd listened to those feelings, I would have never taken the jump. So that lesson there is really to take action before you feel ready. And I think this applies to so many parts of our life. So often that scary stuff is really what we should be doing. And that feeling of fear is lying to us. And it's more an indicator of where we should go. So bouncing off of that, the next lesson I learned from this class was that fear is normal, jump anyway. So when I got to the top of that ladder, mind you, this was on a pier overlooking the water. So it's already on the top of the roof of a building. And we had to climb a tall, little skinny ladder that went to a little tiny platform. And from there, we were going to jump. And I did exactly what you're not supposed to do. I looked down and I was scared shitless. And I said to the instructor, I'm not ready to do this. And he looked at me and said, I'd be worried if you weren't scared. When was the last time you climbed a tall little ladder and stood on a wobbly platform that you were about to jump off of? And it really clicked to me then that it would be weird if I wasn't scared. And fear is such a normal thing. Again, like I just said, fear is something we are all wired to have. It is something we have evolved to have. It is a form of self-protection. It is it's from our hunter-gatherer days. It's how we self-protect. It's how we've evolved to stay alive. So it would be strange if we all didn't have fear when we were confronting something new, when we were confronting a new leap in our life. And so those things we tell ourselves, like, I'm not ready, or I can't do this, or I can't, those are all very normal things to think and very normal feelings. But again, that doesn't mean that they're real. Again, that part of our brain is very much lying to us because there's no room for fear in momentum. So what I found was I had so much more fear in the anticipation as I was thinking, as I was climbing up that ladder, thinking about what I was going to do. And after I was actually finished, I was trembling. So before and after is when I felt the fear. When I was actually in movement and in action, there was no room for fear because I was so present and so in the momentum. And fear knows that. So it very much clings on because it wants to hang out and keep us safe and comfortable. That's its job. But there's absolutely no room for fear in momentum and in action. And so I think the really big takeaway there is that fear is normal, do it anyway, and that starting point, that jumping off point is always where we feel, that anticipation is always where we feel the most fear, but that starting is what stops the fear. That momentum is what stops the fear. And that's just a really great one for all of us starting anything, whether it's sitting down to write something or start a new business or just even a new workout regimen. It's always that anticipation in our mind where we feel the most fear. Okay, so the next lesson I got from this class was that small steps build upon one another. This is something that's come up with a lot of my coaching clients, and I think it's one that always seems too easy, and so it's easy for us to overlook. So I'll say when I got to this class, the class before me was finishing up, and they were doing all this crazy stuff. They were grabbing onto people's hands and swinging. They were doing backflips, and I was sure it was the advanced class. And it turned out it was the same exact class that I was taking. And by the time we were finished with our class, we were doing all those same tricks. We were doing backflip dismounts. We were hanging onto other people's arms and swinging. We were hanging upside down. But if we had started from that point when we started the class, if we had started as our first task was to go up there, take a jump, hang upside down, grab someone's arm, do a backflip off, none of us would have ever climbed the ladder. The way we got to that point was by starting on the ground, learning one step, then learning another step, coming back down, learning another step, and all of those small steps built upon the last one, and that's where we got to where we were at the end of the class. And I think the same happens in our business and in our life. We so often try to start at the finish line, and we psych ourselves out, we get ourselves discouraged because we will look to an expert and think that's where we're supposed to start, or we'll look to the end of a class and get ourselves overwhelmed, or we'll look to 5 years down the road, which is great to look in the future, but we'll look to there and think that's where we're supposed to start, when the truth is small steps from where we're at, small consistent steps that we take every day, and then take another one and add to that, and take another one and add to that, those add up and compound over time to where we can quite literally hang from a little tiny bar in the middle of the air and do a backflip off of it. I think that's such a great lesson I picked up from that class, and just such a great reminder that I want to share with all of you. All right, so the next one is to look forward to where you're going. Oh, this is a good one. This is, I think, incredibly important. So look forward to where you're going. What am I talking about here? So there was one jump. It's actually the one that's caught on camera. If you click the link over that I applied there, you'll see a little video, and it's actually the one that was caught. There was one jump that I did where I almost missed hooking onto the bar, and I almost flipped all the way off, which was a little scary. And when I got down to the ground, I asked the instructor, what had I done wrong? What had happened there? And he said, you weren't looking where you were going. And then he said, where your head goes, your body follows. And yes, that is so applicable to trapeze. It's so applicable to most sports, but it's also really applicable to our business and to our lives. Where our head goes, where our focus goes, what we pay attention to is where our body follows, is where our business follows, is where our life follows. We have a part of our brain, and you guys probably heard me talk about this before, the reticular activating system. It's my favorite. It's the part of our brain that filters in what we pay attention to. And when we tell it what to focus on, it's what tells the rest of our body, the rest of our consciousness, what to focus and pay attention to. And so quite literally, when we tell our head where to go, the rest of us follows. And so often I think we are, what I was doing, we're looking at the ground, so we almost fall to the ground, or we're looking off to the side and we almost flip off to the side instead of where we want to go. And so the takeaway there is in order to catch the bar, in business, in life, we have to look forward and look to where we're going. All right, this next one is one that I think was important for me to hear, and I think for a lot of us in this group, this is an important one, and that's to reach out and let someone catch you. So one of the coolest tricks in this class was we swung through the air and another person actually caught us and we got to swing. And in order to do that, they taught us to have what was called catch hands, these cool hands like this. We had to have catch hands. They told us to reach out. We had to let the other person grab us first and then hold on. And I think that's so applicable to our business and to our lives, because how many of us could use someone who could catch us and could use some help and could use that support, but we don't let anyone know. We don't put out our catch hands, or we're trying to micromanage it and we're trying to grab on first and we're pulling the other person down. And so I think that's just such a great reminder that every once in a while we all need someone to grab us, to catch us. And that in order to do that, we need to have those catch hands, and we need to allow someone to catch us and to hold on to us. And it's so effing fun when you do. And finally, the last lesson I picked up from this trapeze class, and I think this is the one that stood out to me the most, and I think if you hear nothing else from this is the one I want you to hear, is that you are so much more capable than you think you are. So this class that I took, it was people young and old, and they said before we had come, there were a bunch of kids who did it, but there were also people who were quite older, quite younger, all different athletic abilities. And every single person in the class did some really remarkable things by the time we were done. Everyone did some awesome tricks. Everyone completed at least getting the instructor to hold on to them, which is a pretty cool trick, I think, and dismounting and hanging upside down. Yes, of course, everyone did it to different degrees of, let's say, grace, and it took people different amount of tries, but everyone was capable of doing it. And every person didn't think they were able to. Every person left doing something that when they started the class, they never thought they would have been able to do. And I think that is such an important thing for us all to remember. There are so many things we think we can't do, and we are all so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. And so if you hear nothing else from this, this is a reminder that you are so much more capable than you think you are. We all have the capability to do crazy, amazing things, like hang from a trapeze bar when we think we can't and do flips off of it, metaphorically, in our life. So if you hear nothing else, please hear that you are so much more capable than you think you are. And so I took a lot of other things from the class, but those are the main things that stood out to me from that trapeze class that I wanted to share with you today. I hope a few of those resonate with you and inspire you. If you are watching, I'd love to hear, I listed the numbers. I'd love to hear which number clicked with you the most from this. And I also want to thank you. We're at the end of, I think, the first week in this Facebook group. So thank you for being a part of this, and looking forward to getting to know everyone more. If there's anything specifically you'd like to hear me talk about in the upcoming weeks, definitely let me know, because I want this group to very much be for you and to serve you. So I'd love to have you share that with me. And that's what I've got for you today. I am sending you so much love. I am wishing you your version of success, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Lots of love. And now the tricky part is always turning this off.